If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here.
If you are a young person and you cannot afford to live in the United States of America, he basically just told you to get out. Hey everyone, cost of living in the United States has gotten way out of hand, and I'm feeling it a lot for the younger generation because they may not have saved enough. They've only been alive for so long. They're new to this. They went to college, like myself. I'm in the younger generation. Went to college, got ourselves degrees, and you come out, and I'm not kidding. You have, for an entry-level job in any industry, you would make less money in that role. Like if you were to be a bartender, you'd make more money than being like someone in an entry-level role. That says a lot. That says a lot. With the exception of like people who are like hackers and computer scientists. But for like pretty much anything else, you're making like $40-something thousand a year, while a bartender can make anywhere between $60,000 to $120,000 just making drinks for people in a bar. And it really makes you wonder, like, you could have just been a bartender and made pretty much the money of like someone who went to college for a degree. And that is shocking. It feels a lot like, we were fed a bit of a lie in order to like jumpstart maybe, a more educated society. But then someone somewhere turned the tables on the heads, and now we're suffering. Let's dive in.
This is what I'm struggling with in America right now in my 20s. Why is everything so expensive? Why am I making more money waitressing than I would make using my college degree? I barely have a life. I have 2 days off and I work Wednesday to Sunday, doubling just to pay my bills. At 22 years old, all of my bills are in my name. I have no help. How are y'all affording housing? In Myrtle Beach, a 1-bedroom apartment is $1,500. How are y'all getting insurance, going to the doctor, getting medicine? And then some of us are trying to be TikTok influencers. Who knows?
Like, it feels like if I were living in a third world country, I'd have a better chance. I'd be having a better quality of life. The costs would be lower. You would be making less money, yes. But like, would every single thing be this overpriced? Would rent and food and healthcare be this insane? I don't know. I feel like people especially in Europe and, let's say even the Caribbean, while, they may have their own challenges, I don't know. I wonder, maybe you might know, is medicine as expensive there as it is here? Because from what I've heard, people in Brazil are paying less than 30%, no. Less than 20% of the cost of any like drug that is in the United States. For example, let's say you have like some sort of immune challenge and you're taking a particular prescription drug, you would probably be getting that either free, fully subsidized by the government, because the government and the U.S. pharmaceutical company would have worked out a deal where they would be paying probably, let's say $100 for the same medicine that would cost $1,000 in the United States. And so the government subsidizes that. And so I'm using Brazil, for example. Healthcare in Brazil is free. All Brazilian citizens have access to free healthcare. All Brazilian citizens have access to free education. So a lot of them, they get their PhDs and they go to school without ever paying a dime. Then they move to the US and they get into really big positions and they funnel their money back home. That is a strategy. It's well known, but that is the same for a lot of people. And I know this because I talk to them all the time. And as someone who has been in the biopharmaceutical industry, I know this thing inside and out. When I took my course at MIT, when we asked about why medicines or therapeutics are so expensive in the United States compared to elsewhere, the answer we got was that the price of medicine is determined by what the market can bear. And we pushed further, and that was the answer we got. This is what I got from my class at MIT, where I was with like one of the top financiers in the world, and also the class was run by one of the founding fathers of biotechnology in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So just to give you a bit of perspective right there. So no one in the world pays the same amount of money for any medicine that you'd be paying for the price that we pay for here in the United States. And I'm giving you that outright. I have a family member. When she was in a country elsewhere, she was taking prescription medications for her eyes. And the cost of the prescription medications was, let's say, how much is $30,000 of their dollars to ours? Let me see here. So $186. So they're paying $186 for all their eye medicine, okay, combined in their country. In the US, since they've moved here, they have been paying over $1,300 US for the same medicine. Now let's compare 186 USD divided by 1,300. See that? Yeah. Oh my God. They were paying 14% of the cost of the same medicine in their home country than when they moved here. And this, I just want to say this so that you out there, you know in your heart that you are being bamboozled, screwed over when it comes to your medicine and healthcare in the United States. Anyway, let me get back to it because I'll create a whole other video on that, but let's get back to the show.
Sure, that's gonna get me. Me and my boyfriend are saving, but we barely see each other during the week, and it feels like we're working our off for nothing.
Very true. When I first started working in biotech, I remember there was this amazing girl. She was in charge of like procurement, and she and her boyfriend were living together. She worked 8 hours throughout the day from morning until evening. Her boyfriend worked 8 hours throughout the night. And so when he would get off his shift and get home by around, maybe 2 in the morning, because he was working a manufacturing job, she'd be fast asleep. And while he would be sleeping, she would just, she would wake up at like 6 o'clock, get ready, head to work. And so they lived in the same house for, what was it, like 5 years? And they never saw each other during the week. And their relationship survived. I don't know how it survived because I can't go without the noogie. But I don't know how they managed to get weekends. They probably got the noogie on weekends. But 2 days a week? Jesus. Let's get back to the show.
Do we need to move somewhere for a better job opportunity that we don't know about?
And this right here leads me to this other segment a comment made by Ben Shapiro, a commentator on the right. And, it breaks my heart. It broke my heart when he said this, but let me play it for you.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing.
Did you hear what Ben Shapiro just said? If you are a young person and you cannot afford to live in the United States of America, he basically just told you to get out, especially if you can't afford it. I want you to understand here, he wasn't directing this at his usual targets, which are immigrants or, immigrants. No, this was a blanket statement made for every single person out there. So if you are American born, by Ben Shapiro's logic and what he just said, if you cannot afford to live here, he basically just told you to get out. And I don't know how you feel about that, because I certainly don't feel pleasant about hearing that. And I feel pissed. Like, who the hell is Ben Shapiro to be telling that to Americans and to anyone? Like, the country is unaffordable right now. That's the issue. Everyone has drastically risen prices because they saw that money was around during the COVID-19 pandemic, when people got those, I forgot what you call it, the money the government sent you in the mail. And then, they refused to bring those prices back down. And you have people on the stock market who have to yield return to their investors, and so they're not going to reduce prices and do what? Take a hit? They're not going to do that. That would be silly business practice. So now we are all suffering because we have been put into this chamber of poison, and it's going to take a hell of a lot to fix. And I don't think it's ever going to be fixed. I think unless, and this, you know how it is with like countries that are in financial trouble. You know where they go. You know what they do to get funds to funnel their empires. So you can already think to solve this problem what they're going to do. Okay? War is what they typically use and what they typically do. I'm not saying anything else. But if I were a third world country or any country out there, and I magically found like some lucrative resource, I would keep that on the down low. No one would know. No one would know. I'd be selling oil on the black market. No one in the world would know. The money would just be coming into my country and my thingy, but no one would know, because guess what? The minute that becomes public news, you have a target on your back, and the entire world knows it. I recently saw like a news that the illegal mining of gold in South America has gone up, and it's lucrative business. How can you illegally mine gold in a country without the country knowing? Like, someone made some backdoor deals there. You don't set up a full mining operation people can't just do that. They can't. Anyway, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that.
Okay, this is the same person who supports funneling billions of dollars to foreign nation for to do whatever they want, and not for putting the American people first. So that's all I have to say with that. But let me get back to what I wanted to focus on in the beginning, which was, hearing more about the struggles of the young people.
Out for nothing. Do we need to move somewhere for a better job opportunity that we don't know about? Do any of y'all really know what you want to do with your life right now? It is so scary being in America right now.
What am I doing wrong? I work every day and I'm still broke. Like, I have a decent job, I make some decent money, but I live out here in Cali. Like, bro, as soon as I get paid, I have all these bills stacked up, bro, that shit wipes me clean. Like, fuck, I got no money left over. Making $100,000 a year doesn't get you anywhere nowadays.
Hi guys, I'm really stressed today. I just went to the grocery store, bought 10 items, and it was $80 freaking dollars.
$80 freaking dollars
already. I literally have $10 left on my account. So a little backstory. I got laid off from my job a month ago. And I've been applying for jobs months before I got laid off. Sent out hundreds of resumes already. Applied to hundreds of jobs on the internet, remote and on-site. Tailored my resume to every position that I applied using ChatGPT. Went to only a few interviews. And still nothing. Like, what the going on with America right now?
I know, and I feel that. I really do. I don't think it's gonna change, unfortunately.
Like, it's so freaking hard to live here. Like, I'm gonna stay positive.
I feel like America is a country that people come to or they show up in and they just work. Like you show up, you work, you make your money, and then you go. That's the feeling I get, right? I feel like America is on the verge of becoming a globalist country, if it hasn't already begun to do so. People who come and they work and they live their lives and save it up in their 401ks or whatever, they leave when they retire. They go to, smaller countries and they bring their money there, and it does contribute to the economy of that country, but it also makes cost of living for the locals harder. And this is something that is called gentrification, because you start to see all these expensive communities that start to, appear out of nowhere in these countries. And the people who have been living there all their lives, they get priced out of rent, housing, buying groceries. And it's almost as if the country eventually becomes, or those parts of the country eventually become taken over by people who don't represent or look like the people who natively grew up there.
I'm gonna keep applying for jobs. I'm gonna keep showing up. But man, my bills are not going to wait.
And they will cut your light and your heat in the middle of winter if you don't pay those bills.
Y'all, I just went today and got my driver's license renewed, my car tags renewed, picked up 2 prescriptions, and got a few groceries. To say that I'm completely broke now is an understatement. So I'm going to have to go home and start selling off my furniture to be able to live the rest of the month. I mean, it's unbelievable. And my heart hurts today. Truly hurts for people who are not able.
And I remember hearing someone say this the other day, and they said that Americans are actually going to feel, like, slowly how expensive things really are to people in the rest of the world. Like, if you grew up in, let's say, Mexico, and you had to purchase petrol, gas to drive your cars. It's not as cheap as here in the United States, and food, all those things, they're not necessarily as cheap as here. Like, if you are an American and you go to the grocery store, you're paying 49 cents on the dollar for a bunch of bananas. Like, a full hand of bananas is 49 cents. Whereas if you grew up in, let's say, some other country, you might be paying the equivalent of maybe $3 US for a hand of bananas. I should not have said bunch. I meant hands in the beginning. But so just to put things into perspective for people, a lot of actions took place historically that resulted in Americans having the luxuries that they do have today. The Great Banana, project that took place, I think, in the mid to late 90s, especially around Colombia. If you look up on YouTube or anywhere, the story of the Chiquita bananas and that entire industry, the entire empire, you'll see what went down. I'm not going into that. I'm not about to get locked up by the US government. But yeah, it's the same thing for a lot of other things, certain actions were taken, and it's not necessarily that these were, the government just said, hey, we're going to go and do this. Capitalist, enterprises lobbied for certain actions to be taken, and then they pushed propaganda and claimed that, people were turning towards, a political ideology that did not align with, the interests of the West. And once, certain people hear that, they're like, we need to root this out. And those actions happened, and those said enterprises and businesses flourished and propped up into these countries. And that's a part of the great instability that we see in a lot of these countries in the Western Hemisphere today. I'd like to remind you that before the 1970s, a lot of countries in the Western Hemisphere were living in abundance and prosperity. Islands such as Jamaica had a dollar that was greater than that of the US dollar. I just wanted to mention this so people get to see and understand that the luxuries that Americans are living in today did not come without the sweat and blood and tears and deaths of millions of people across the world. So we're feeling the pains right now because no one has launched, or people have launched similar projects, but they failed. And because of those failures, the US got a net negative return on their investments, and the people are starting to feel that now. So, like I said, if I were a country out there, hint, hint, just understand that the beast is hungry and it's coming for you.
And we're living in some rough times, really rough times. And we need to be praying for all those around us who are not as fortunate as we are to be able to do the things that we need to do. I'm not talking about extras. I'm not talking about going on vacation and doing fun things. I'm talking about living, taking care of your vehicle, if you can even afford a vehicle.
Living. That's a key one. I don't think a lot of Americans, especially on the East Coast or the northeastern part of the coast, really understand what it means to really live. People on the West Coast, they do. People in the southern parts of the United States, they do. They really take the time out. They enjoy the beach. They go surfing a lot. They swim. A lot of people, on the West Coast and in the southern states, they take the time out to really live their lives. And they move a little bit slower, sure. Not that they're slow people, but there's no rush. You're still gonna get the work done. But it's very much like the people in Europe. Not fully there yet. But Europeans, they live. Like, they're living their lives. What does it mean? Like, they are not consumed by their jobs. Their job is not everything. Your job is not everything. It should not be your everything. Because if you lose your everything, then what do you have left? Sure, you have to create the facade that it is because you want to win your job, you want to keep your job, you want to get it through the interview. But just like your husband or your boyfriend should never, no one person, no one thing should be your everything. Because if that thing gets taken away, then you will have nothing. And the worst thing in the world to be is a human being who has nothing. Because then you are the most dangerous thing in the world. Because you have nothing to lose.
Good. Now, people that making $20 an hour, I'm like, man, how are they surviving? Like, this is insane. Fast food places are paying $20 an hour now. So $20 an hour is the new $10 an hour. Obviously, all of this is relative to where you live. So my $20 an hour, where I live in Northern Virginia, may be your $16 an hour, or maybe your $30 an hour. It all really depends on where you live. Like, I can't be the only one that sees this stuff. Like, I can't be the only one that understands what's going on. And it honestly worries me that there's some people out there that make less than that. Like, think about the people out there that's making minimum wage. Like, probably have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make up for, a livable income. It's insane.
I'm just mad. I'm just mad anymore. There's no reason for me to be like, yay, America, like, we're so great, we're so free, we're so powerful. I'm starving. I have to go without so that my kid can maybe have Pop-Tarts once a month. Shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't have to go like, let's see, we haven't had meat in a long time, because guess what? We can't afford it, okay? But yet we're the ones working every day to make this country go round and round. but we're not worth being able to have decent food or the amount of food that we need to have one of our family members go without. I'm done. I'm done. I'm so done.
These are the realities of a third world nation. There's nothing else, we have to say. The United States is not a third world country, but there are people who are living under third world conditions within the United States. And I honestly hope things do get better. I won't continue anymore because it just gets more depressing from here. There have been people who have, oh my gosh, jumped through from buildings. We're seeing signs of things that happened. Whew. We're seeing signs of things that happened before the last, or around the time of the around the time of the last recession. Things are bad, and if things are bad here, I want you to understand, if things are bad here in the United States of America, then imagine how bad the rest of the people across the world are having it right now. Especially after they ain't getting no more aid, no more USAID. So, Nolan signing out.